What if I told you the person you fear the most might one day be you? That even the kindest, most moral people you know, including yourself, could slowly become something unrecognizable, a monster hiding behind good intentions. This isn't fiction, it's psychology, and it happens every day without anyone realizing. Let me show you how. What could cause such a profound transformation? How does a person go from being good to becoming something they once despised? That's what we're going to explore today. This isn't some abstract philosophical musing. It's deeply real and deeply relevant because it could happen to any of us. You might think you're immune, that you're too grounded, too moral, too self-aware to fall into darkness. But science, history, and psychology tell us otherwise. The disturbing reality is that under certain conditions, anyone, yes, even the most upright among us, can be led down a path that ends in destruction. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo, known for the infamous Stanford prison experiment, proved how ordinary individuals placed in certain roles and situations can commit acts of cruelty they never thought themselves capable of. His work, and that of others like Stanley Milgram, shows us how thin the line between morality and immorality really is. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize they're changing until it's far too late. So what drives this change? What unseen forces slowly eat away at a person's integrity, turning goodness into something sinister? Let's break it down, one layer at a time. It rarely starts with anything major. At first, it's just a tiny decision, a white lie here, a rule bent there. A person might think, it's no big deal, or this is just a one-time thing. But every small compromise chips away at the moral boundaries they once held sacred. Over time, that person gets used to crossing lines. What was once unthinkable becomes acceptable. They justify actions they never would have condoned in the past, because once the first moral boundary is crossed, the next one becomes easier. And so begins the slide. This is the slippery slope effect. Someone might lie to protect a friend, then they lie again to protect themselves. Maybe they start bending rules for the greater good. Slowly, those justifications reshape how they see themselves. The line between right and wrong begins to blur. Then there's the influence of authority. Stanley Milgram's experiment in the 1960s revealed something deeply unsettling. Everyday people were willing to administer what they thought were dangerous electric shocks to strangers just because someone in a lab coat told them to. They weren't driven by malice, they just felt they had no choice. They were just following orders. This is how good people become instruments of harm, not because they want to, but because they feel they're expected to. The pressure to conform, to obey, to avoid consequences, it overrides personal morality. And once obedience replaces ethics, people become capable of things they never imagined. Another dangerous force is group identity. When someone becomes tightly bound to a group, be it religious, political, or social, they often begin to view outsiders as the other. And with that shift comes a subtle but devastating change: dehumanization. History is full of examples. People who considered themselves moral, even righteous, committed atrocities because they stopped seeing their enemies as people. The other became less deserving of empathy, less human. This mental shift is what makes it possible to commit violence and feel justified, because when you no longer see someone as fully human, harming them doesn't feel wrong. This leads us to the most haunting question of all. Could you be capable of such a transformation? Under the right pressure, with the right justifications, could you do things you'd never imagine yourself doing today? The answer isn't simple, but to understand it, we must go even deeper. Here's one of the most dangerous aspects of moral dissent. People almost never see themselves as villains. Even when they're doing terrible things, they construct internal narratives to maintain their image, as a good person. They'll say, "I had no choice," or "they brought it on themselves," or "this is for the greater good." This is known as cognitive dissonance, a term coined by psychologist Leon Festinger. When our actions clash with our beliefs, we experience discomfort. To ease that discomfort, most of us don't change our actions, we change our beliefs. We rewrite the story to justify the behavior. That's how someone can do harm and still see themselves as morally righteous. Over time, these internal stories silence our conscience, and once that voice goes quiet, the descent into darkness accelerates. There's also something called moral licensing. When someone sees themselves as good, they often feel more justified in doing bad things. It's like earning moral credit. For instance, a person might think, "I donated to charity, so it's okay if I lie about this." Or a leader may silence dissenting voices, convinced they're doing it for a noble cause. The irony? The more righteous people feel, the more blind they become to their own flaws. History has shown us time and again, some of the worst atrocities weren't committed by those who saw themselves as evil, but by those who genuinely believed they were on the right side of history. Perhaps the final and most chilling transformation is dehumanization. When we start seeing others not as people, but as enemies, obstacles, or problems, our moral compass shuts down. Soldiers in war are trained to see the enemy as targets, not as human beings. Political propaganda paints opponents as less than human, evil, corrupt, or dangerous. This shift frees individuals from guilt. After all, if someone is no longer a person in your eyes, then harming them doesn't feel like a moral violation. But this doesn't just happen in times of war or political chaos. It happens every day. In workplaces, when people mistreat colleagues they don't like. In relationships, when one partner convinces themselves the other deserves cruelty. On social media, when strangers are reduced to avatars and insults flow freely. Dehumanization is subtle, but it is everywhere. And it can affect any of us. If good people are capable of becoming monsters, how do we stop it? The first line of defense is self-awareness. It's dangerous to believe, "I could never do something like that." That very thought can blind us. Self-awareness means understanding our capacity for wrongdoing and staying vigilant against it. Ask yourself, am I justifying something I once thought was wrong? Am I seeing someone as less than me? Am I letting a group or authority shape what I know is right? These questions are uncomfortable but necessary. Next comes moral courage, the willingness to do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it costs us. Anyone can stand for their principles when it's convenient, but real strength is shown when standing firm means rejection, ridicule, or loss. History remembers those who spoke up, who refused to conform, even when it would have been easier to stay silent. Alongside courage, we need empathy. Because most of the forces that lead people astray depend on destroying empathy. When we connect with others, when we understand their pain and stories, it becomes harder to see them as the other. Empathy cuts through the illusions that lead to hate and cruelty. Now we reach the ultimate truth, the deepest, most unsettling insight. It's not just internal weakness that drives people toward evil, it's the environment. We are shaped more by the world around us than we realize. The systems we live in, the cultures we absorb, the voices we listen to all play a role in molding who we become. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo called this the Lucifer effect, the transformation of good people into perpetrators of evil due to environmental pressures. A workplace that tolerates dishonesty will slowly breed dishonesty. A society that excuses prejudice will shape people who think their bias is valid. A culture that celebrates dominance over compassion creates individuals who see kindness as weakness. And this is why we must be aware, not only of ourselves, but of the environments we help build. The descent into darkness is not a single decision. It's a slow, quiet process, one that can happen to any of us unless we actively resist it. But the light is always there too. By cultivating self-awareness, moral courage, empathy, and strong internal values, we can stand against the tide. We can be the ones who stop the cycle, who hold the line. Because understanding how good people become monsters is the first step in ensuring we never do. If this made you question even a small part of yourself, you're exactly where you need to be. Hit that subscribe button and join the Thought Lab, where we explore the hidden corners of the mind, one truth at a time. And if this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's grow wiser together.